In the first Indiana Jones movie, Indy recovered the lost Ark of the Covenant, surely a huge find, though it did wind up in a government warehouse. In the second movie, he recovered not only another religious artifact, a sacred stone, but also an entire village worth of children. So what happens in the third film? Well, how about going after the ultimate artifact, the Holy Grail? And this time around, Indy has his father in tow, who most definitely does not smell of elderberries. The movie starts off with a flashback to 1912, where Indy is a young boy in the Boy Scouts, doing some exploring, and he comes across some adventurers finding a lost golden cross. In this flashback, in which the young Indy attempts to steal the cross so it could be put in a museum instead of sold to the highest bidder, we wind up learning a lot about the character, but almost too much. Seriously, it's like almost every defining characteristic of the character was triggered in a single day. I do have to praise the opening for one thing, though. The actor who played young Indy did a great job. Anyway, back to the present, 1938, Indy once again attempts to get the cross, this time successfully, though he risks his ass doing it. He brings it back to Marcus Brody, and then he gets the news that it may be possible after all to find the Holy Grail. But the last man looking for it went missing. At first he's not interested, but the man that is lost turns out to be his father, who was always obsessed with the Grail. Like in the first film, the Nazis are also after the cross, and they play an even bigger role here. Indy even meets Hitler and accidentally gets the man's autograph, probably the funniest scene in the entire franchise. Indy rescues his dad, and there's Nazis and double crosses and all sorts of great shit, leading to the classic scene with the old knight waiting for them to pick the correct cup, though you cannot leave with the Grail. The movie in a lot of ways is about the dangers of obsession. Indy doesn't really care about the Holy Grail. It's perhaps the most important archaeological find ever, but what he really cares about is rescuing his father. His father, who is always obsessed with the cup, and he has been throughout his life, he has to let go of it too, and care about his son. The Germans are single-minded. They only care about the power the cup has, not what it represents, and for that they pay the ultimate price. The Last Crusade is a great film. It's a bit of a throwback to Raiders, but in some ways it bridges a halfway point between Raiders and Temple of Doom. Temple of Doom took the series from fun, high adventure into almost a slapstick comedy. Last Crusade keeps the funny parts, but it remembers the sense of adventure and fun. It comes first. So with all the silly moments and the jokes, it never falls out of context. In other words, it does a better job at what the second movie failed to do. Unlike Temple, Crusade lives up to the lofty expectations that the original Raiders of the Lost Ark gave us, and I think it's the true sequel that had been waited on. All three of these films are remembered fondly, but I'm really happy that they made Last Crusade, because if they had stopped after 2, it would have just been Raiders of the Lost Ark and its inferior sequel, and not a classic trilogy. Now, of course, there is one more, and I'll get to that tomorrow, but for now, let's assess this one. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is great, and it gets a great rating, 8 out of 10.